like to welcome today's panelists, Professor Anthony Killer of SIAB Center Director, Yemi Adamalekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, and Niyi Oyelawo, Arise News Analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are some moments of wrangling last Friday night during Nigeria's first TV debate for some political party vice presidential candidates ahead of the February 16, 2019 presidential election. As expected, most of the focus was on the incumbent vice president, Yemi Osinbajo, of the ruling All Progressives Congress, and Peter Obi of the main opposition People's Democratic Party. The first point of disagreement was on the issue of ease of doing business. Both men disagreed on whether Nigeria had improved its ambience to attract foreign investment or not. While Obi reeled out statistics about the volume of foreign investment in other economies, Osinbajo tried to puncture that by saying that the countries Obi cited, such as South Africa and China, have one thing in common: adequate infrastructure. Let's take a look.
There's so many things you can do. Let me take the issue of port, for example. Nigerian Ports Authority, for years, looked at the expansion that is coming and everything, and decided not to invest. Instead, we're using money wrongly. Nigerian Ports Authority is the only port in the world that has an office, even guest house, outside its country of operation. They have a guest house in London. And that is the problem. You're not investing money in the business. And the reason why they're not investing money in the business is that the source of their money, is the waste that is in government continues to drive their process. So you need to get these things to be more efficient by allowing them to get their money from the capital market. If the money they are using to operate today is from the capital market, they will become more efficient because they have monies, loans that they need to pay back. They need new managers, and banks will be after them.
I thought the candidate of the PDP will at least acknowledge that while under the PDP, we fell 64 places down on the World Bank Index. Under us, we've moved 24 spaces in 18 months, 24 places up in the ease of doing business. The second thing is, if you say investments haven't taken place in years, who has been in office these last 16 years? Isn't it just incredible? Isn't it just incredible how it is possible to keep a straight face and talk about all that has gone wrong? Why this country is where we are today, and why we're where we are today is because of 16 years of mismanagement of resources. That's the problem. So all these investments ought to have been done. We're investing in infrastructure now with 60% less. We're investing in infrastructure, 60% less. We're doing far more with less. Certainly, what we intend to do is to build on what we're doing. That's why we're talking about the next level. We need to build on what we're doing. At the moment, we moved 24 places up in the ease of doing business. It means, of course, that even internationally, it's been accepted that we're one of the top 10 reforming economies in the world. That's the World Bank report. So what we really need to do is to build on that. And we're doing exactly that. One of the issues with foreign direct investment, of course, is in creating the environment. Power. We need to improve power, which is one of the critical issues for us, which we're doing, improving transmission assets, improving distribution assets. At the moment, we have improved transmission assets by 2,000 megahertz. So where we inherited 5,000 megahertz of delivery on transmission, we are now able to do 7,000 megahertz of delivery on transmission. And we need to keep improving. We need to improve our railroads because, for example,
Is the jury still out on the vice presidential debate, or do you have your reviews on the performance of each one of them?
You let me go. Well, I think the jury is still out. Three things struck me, watching the debate. One is that, unfortunately, for someone like me who's an advocate of the third force, it came out clearly that there were only two forces there. The other, and this is a very painful admission for someone like me to watch that thing happening there, to realize that the other forces were sort of absent. That was the reader, the lady there who was reading almost everything. Yes, I tagged that, the reader. Then there was Galadima, who seems to be a bright boy from a dull school. he had an idea of something, but you can see that he's not used to the top level yet. Yeah, the ticket, not even the depth wasn't there, you know, just somebody who was the first in the class where most people are very low in their understanding of things. So the battle became between Obi and Osinbajo very clearly. And I think another thing, Obi was very prepared. He followed a selected, deliberate rhetoric, method of public debate. His posture, his positions, even his body language, you know, wishes a lot. The vice president, you can see, is a confident speaker, but I think he struggled with substance, you know, in reality. Obi was more dramatic, pushing him. They were not as confrontational as I would love them to be, because, you know, there are things that they could pull out, to say very clearly. But I think going forward, one good thing is, and this is good for Nigeria, we must say, is that they both seem to agree on what the main issues are. So it is now left to non-governmental organizations, the media, to keep pushing for these issues and to get meat out of it. In that way, the jury is still out. I say we see what the battle is.
Yeah, I mean, how would you assess Peter Obi's preparedness? Because Anthony here thinks he came prepared, but the reviews so far are that some of the facts have not stood the test of verification. What's your view on this?
I agree. I think it might have come prepared in the sense that he wanted to hit certain points, and then the preparedness then lacked depth in terms of his facts and figures. And maybe he had gotten the wrong facts or had too many facts in his head or literally was pulling numbers out of his head. So it could be one of those three things. But in at least addressing the issues, trying to address them with facts. Because an interesting thing that, at least especially on social media that you've seen, there are people who are very excited that he was using facts. And people are like, yeah, you can get excited. But the fact that his facts were wrong seems to connote something quite different. And I think that's one main thing that was missing, and a missing element of the debate. Sort of real on-the-spot fact-checking, so that people don't leave. I mean, if you then get on social media, you can see the facts, or if you go to Google, you can see what you would go and search if you think it was wrong. Yeah. But if you are receiving what they say, and there's a certain confidence that you can't take away from Mr. Obi.
He sold his point.
Very clearly. And so the confidence in which he delivers false information means that most people, that's what he did. Now, if it's deliberate, it's a separate matter. But the confidence with which he did it means that most people would watch believing what he said. And I think I'd also slightly disagree with Mr. Killer on the made the issues fit. I think, well, yes, it was the first one, so maybe the president or the presidential candidates will have a different set of questions. There are other debates being planned, so hopefully we'll get to hear them speak on other issues. But I think one key issue for me that was missing was education. The educational sector in Nigeria is in crisis. So I think for such a key part of a Nigeria that's looking forward and wants to build, for APC who's talking about the next level, or PDP who's talking about making Nigeria great again, or the other three who just want to serve, nobody spoke about education, or even if they weren't asked specifically, they could have found a way to
They
input
touched
that
on it. Osinbajo talked about the STEAM schools, the STEAM classes in schools in Nigeria, the tech hubs. Peter Obi talks about his record with the 30,000 HP computers and his prioritizing of education when he was governor of Anambra State.
Good. I'm glad you brought that up, which for me then shows really how they don't have a plan. Because doing STEM classes, buying computers that there's no light to power, or hubs that somebody has actually, one of the fact checks on Twitter was that there's a plan to have 6, but it doesn't seem like all 6 are actually up and running. But those are just really small bits in the grand scheme of our educational sector needs a complete overhaul. Your universities are on strike. What does STEM hubs have to do with that? So until we deal with sort of the fundamentals.
He said STEAM, he added art. Yeah. He made a point to say
entertainment. We're there, very good. But until you're ready to restructure your educational sector, then all that is just games.
Neither here nor there.
I would rather focus on the content of the debate regarding this. There was a lot of generalization on the part of the other candidates, and we saw, obviously, like he mentioned, the race was just between Peter Obi and, of course, Vice President Osinbajo. And also looking at some of the contents, if I may be allowed to look at some of this, we have, yes, I am going to look at it. Mr. Obi claims Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children, like you mentioned, in the world. Yes, it is true. Yeah. Now, in 2015, the United Nations Children Fund and the government put the figure at 12.2 million, coming from a 10.5 million. Mr. Obi also says the petroleum subsidy is a waste of resources and there are only 2 million vehicles in Nigeria. He was wrong on that. While he may hold his view on the petroleum subsidy thing, in June, the NBS puts a number of vehicles in Nigeria at about National Statistics, which is the main authority we should be looking at on this, which is 11.7 million vehicles. Now, to Professor Oshibajo, he claims that Nigeria produces 90% of rice consumed. Yes. Now, that actually hasn't been proven so far. While the program is still on, well, it's been dogged with various issues and setbacks. There has been
smuggling is a major issue.
Yeah, it is. It is. That hasn't been addressed so far. And there's a claim of small and medium-scale businesses have witnessed a lot of boost and everything. Well, to a large extent, that is true. It's gotten a lot of assistance, and there's a 20% tax rate lowered for businesses in the agri-mining sector, which will follow for like 5 years or thereabout. But that's been also in the works as well. So there's a myriad of half-truths, there's a myriad of truths, and I think generally it's for Nigerians to make up their minds. And I think to a large extent they've been able to do that, irrespective of the...
What is your view on the Vice President's go-to phrase, the last 16 years? Did you find it relevant or hackneyed in this context?
Well, I will say you could go historically, go back to the basics, what happened then, but I don't think that should be the basis of what you should be doing now. You should be able to move from then and, just actualize your vision for the people and implement it. Stop delving in the past and move on.
I think the Vice President and the Court of Administration genuinely feel that they're dealing with 16 years of problem. And I think they're very lucky that Peter Obi allowed them to get away with it yesterday. Because there are phrases that he could have used to puncture that thing forever and ever.
Such as?
Oh, such as here you go again. Such as here comes Magic 16. He could have done that. Yeah. And I also think
but that address it. So to your point, you would have punctured it in a way of making light of it, not necessarily disproving it.
No, to totally show that you've said it too many times.
Got it. So for you it's hackneyed. Yes. But what about the criticisms of PDP that they are also too quick to sweep 16 years of malfeasance under the carpet? They never refer to it at all. So where's the balance?
Well, in a way, the balance lies with the citizens, and again, perhaps the moderator. I think that moderator was analog. It wasn't digital enough, The moderator was using the style of the old sit-down firm, don't show any expression. You don't do that in 2018, you expect it to be more interactive in the thing and perhaps more authoritative. And it doesn't need to be him. He could have a panel behind him, feeding him figures and reaction. That is the kind of debate you'd expect, indeed, and he didn't do that. And it's a shame because there are people who could have done better. We must say these things for the benefit of this country. Kadaira Hamid could have done better. Shehu Okinbalogun could have done a better debate than that man did. I think it should be said because this idea about being vague on things, we should stop it. I want to be specific about it.
But I would say this, having been involved in quite a number of debates in the country, part of how you get your moderator, it's negotiated. So you also have to put in context that it was organized by the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, which includes everyone. Sheun, for example, is the staff of one of them, whose chairman happens to be the chairman of the elections debate group. So in terms of conflict, I see why Sheun would not have been chosen. Kadaria has TV shows, also quite a bit of them on a particular station, so that might also be a reason why. So I think it's also important just to provide context on the choice.
Oh, they will find their own.
Yeah, but to your point, but to your point though, that maybe the moderator could have been better, just to keep that in mind. But I do want to say this on the 16 years. I think there's a place for it, and indeed the Vice President could have, or should really, quite frankly, have mentioned it. Maybe opening remarks, maybe one of the first things he said. But at least, I don't know who was saying it, that he said it within a short period of time 5 times. And then most importantly for me, the import to lend to your point of how they really feel that they're battling 16 years is that he used it as his closing remark.
Yes.
I think for what they say they have done, and let me take that back, for what they have done and what they plan and hope to do, using that as a way to sell yourself to Nigerians was definitely
and then the reality behind, look, 4 years, can you actually
Yes,
right the
exactly.
wrongs
Indeed.
of the past. So that's one of
That's
the
something-
issues at play here.
Yeah, but what's your take on that? Can they? Could they have done a lot more? Could they have gone further?
Well, I think they could have been more proactive. Okay, it's always about having issues regarding not being able to do them, and it looks like excuses for Nigerians, and they want quick fixes. But the reality on ground is that won't happen. It takes a lot of planning, for all of this to be achieved.
And communication.
As both the VP and Peter Obi stressed, the Vice President of Nigeria's portfolio is economic. How well do you think our current VP sold his economic achievements, and how well do you think Peter Obi sold his economic capacities?
That is the problem I was alluding to, because he was struggling with content. You see, it would have been great. The kind of best-selling, the vice president, yes, he was struggling with content because, if you're doing a vice presidential debate and somebody is able to argue that, and I think they all agree, that the main portfolio of the vice president is the economic portfolio, you would have wanted a vice president who would go there and say, we have reduced tax by this percentage, we have increased number of businesses by this number, and to roll out achievement and to say, we've introduced this kind of reforms. And and stick to that. And the argument of the ruling party and of the VP should have been, we've done A, B, C to D. Now we're going to move from E to K. So allow us going because these are the things we've done. I think there was a bit of struggle there because even the VP struggled to say this is what we've done for 3.5 years. He was saying this is what we've done for 18 months or for 6 months. It wasn't a continuous thing. But I think, obviously they have done some things because I know for a fact that it is easier to register business in Nigeria now than it was 4 years ago.
So that his point about the ease of doing business, that has been verified.
Yes,
That
to
we
a
have
large
a less hostile environment for business than we had under PDP.
Yeah, but you also have to look at the situation that Peter Obi, if you look at his background, where he's coming from, is more of a businessman, is more of an entrepreneur. So he's been there, so he's well prepared for, to roll out the figures, even if you can punch holes at these figures every now and then. But like he said, the vice president needed to have, actualized what they've done and, roll out the figures.
And that is why we're having a close competition anyway.
Indeed.
Because if the ruling party had scored 8 out of 10, you wouldn't be thinking of that kind of competition what we have now.
No.
I think he did roll out figures, and I think if we use the time frames that he used, if he says we increased it in 18 months, ease of doing business, for example, is done periodically, so it's not a 3-year, whatever it is. And if I'm not mistaken, why he chose that particular data point is that because the following year, I think we dropped down 1 point.
Exactly.
So we increased 24 and then came down 1. So it would make sense strategically for him to talk about how they shot up in 18 months. Yeah, of course. So I think he did as in terms of communication, Peter Obi communicates his numbers better, almost definitely. But I think I would say that the vice president also gave out numbers. Maybe to your point, maybe not as much that in terms of if all you are saying is if you are sticking to a script, if you use your words for Peter Obi, and you said my mandate today is to keep talking about what I'm going to do in what we've done in 3 years, then I have to agree with that. Yeah.
So the two candidates also clashed on the issue of foreign policy. Let's take a look.
I believe that we're first Africans and we have a lot to gain and to offer Africa. And while dealing with other nations, making sure that our relationship is beneficial to our country and brings a lot of value in terms of security, in terms of our economic turnaround and everything that will help us to create jobs and help us to see that it will be a win-win situation, not a situation where we now go around all over the world borrowing. We would go more to learn about what they're doing, because I believe that what they are doing will be more valuable to us to implement here than a situation where we're almost going to borrow everything from China.
I think the major focus of our foreign policy is and will remain the economy and security. So, for example, in trade, on trade issues, We're extremely vigilant. We just set up a trade office, a trade negotiations office, which had never been in existence, so that we're able to enter into fair trade agreements with everyone else. And that accounts for some of the work we're doing on the AFCTA. Also, some of the economic partnership agreements that we're supposed to have signed with Europe, with the European Union. These are the sorts of issues that we're looking at. We're saying, for instance, that we cannot sign those EPAs as they are currently because we're looking out for the economic interests of Nigeria in our foreign relations. Second, of course, is security. One of the points that's been made is that we will cooperate with our neighbors. Indeed, that is what is going on at the moment. The Multinational Joint Task Force is one such cooperation. So Chad, Cameroon, Niger are partners with us in fighting Boko Haram and other forms of terrorism that may be showing up, especially the Islamic State of West Africa and all of that. So clearly, what our foreign policy will be, and continue to be, is our emphasis on the economy, our emphasis on security. All of our friends, whether they are in the West or whether they're Africans, we will judge their relationship with us on the basis of how beneficial they are to our economy and to our security.
Nee, I'll start with you because I saw you furiously scribbling your notes.
All right, just my observation here. Okay, it's obviously been said by Peter Obi talking about borrowing, using that as the basis for his argument on foreign policy. Well, you can argue here that, look, successive governments have already done that. So would you use that as a key figure in this regard? And then again, do we have a defined foreign policy objective? Now, in the old days, talking about the Cold War, everything is itemized. You know how you're going to relate with your neighbors and everything. But we're not seeing that happening these days. For the Vice President, he talks about economy and security. This seems to be more of a reactionary foreign policy objective, okay? So it's not that you're just, as the situation demands, that's when you're reacting to it. So the issue of defined foreign policy objectives needs to be itemized. We need to know. How would you relate with, he made a very valid argument regarding China. Now, we heard about the US warning us in those days about, even up to now, borrowing and the neo-colonialism concept regarding that. So to a large extent, I think both candidates, you might tip the balance for the vice president in terms of that, reactionary, but we still need to have more on that. They need to do more of their homework.
Yeah, me?
This segment, I think for me, I'd have to concur, just not really clear. And I think it was a good opportunity for Prof. really to hit back hard at Peter Obi, because technically, in 3 years, we should have been building on a solid, clear foreign policy, and either you're saying that this is what we've done and this is what we continue to do. And even Peter Obi didn't say that, under the PDP, this is what we were doing. He just basically said, this is what you're doing, that's wrong. And I just agree that it's not very clear, and we just seem to, I think one of the classic things for me when I think of Nigeria and our foreign policy is the pictures when we have international meetings. So the Nigerian delegation is sitting on one side, table clear. The foreign delegations, sitting on the other side. We've got notepads, pens, people. They've come to wow.
They look like please table.
Exactly. So. And that really speaks to that point. As if we're just faffing around, not really sure what we want. We're just there to listen and not there to engage and negotiate for Nigeria. Anthony?
I think in terms of perception, the vice president did better, even though he wasn't saying much. He looked more presidential and he looked thoughtful. He was looking like a wise man while he was, speaking on the foreign relations. But I think, and I say this, and this is going personal now, because I'm a sort of broken-hearted supporter of this administration. Somebody who, really supported them a lot before. I would have loved on that day, for the vice president to have said that we went into office and this was our philosophy on foreign affairs. Based on that, we have done these 5 things. And that is why 4 years ago, Nigerians had to queue this long to get visas in this country, but because of the agreement we've done, that has changed. That is the way to say, vote for me.
You're not swayed by the Trade Negotiation Office, the first of its kind? That's not...
We haven't seen the result yet. It's still in tension. You can't... You are, quarter to end of the game. It's less than quarter to end of the game now. And you can't still be living on promises. By now you should be saying, Look at what I've done for you.
Exactly,
Yes. That is the witness of the position. And one thing to be said, and this goes back to the 16 years thing, you will soon notice, and analysts are already picking up, that the strategy or the tactics of the Atiku campaign is to find a way to free themselves from the 16-year thing. They're not doing PDP's coming back. They're doing Atiku is applying for the job. And I suspect that very soon they're going to be throwing coalition forward, just to say that. They
already have one signed.
Exactly, exactly. They already have one signed, as a matter of fact.
They're just fighting around the
around
dynamics
doing it.
thereof. But
Yes, yeah.
Were you swayed by his point on security and the international collaborations?
But that's to your point again. I think yes, in the sense that it's a fact. You are saying that what we know. So the Lake Chad agreement or the Lake Chad, whatever that union is called, having meetings. The fact that we do know we have a security issue, and we know that we're talking to neighboring nations. So I think in terms of this is what we've done that citizens have seen, as opposed to the trade offers, that was easy to relate to.
And of course, I think more should be done on the economic front as well. It's one thing to say you've done all of this, but it's another to actually see, the effect on people's lives.
Yes.
Daily. People can't.
And I think Peter Obi is actually is way kinder than me, in the way he handled that thing. Because he could have pointed out that for a president who travels a lot in fourth person, to handle for a relationship that we've seen with the results, that could have been a very hard punch to throw there. But Peter Obi didn't do that as well. Yeah.
But the lady, Alhaja Khadija, she became animated at the point of the VP when he was talking about his work with the MSMEs and the taxes. She became very animated. That's what you'd have liked to see from Peter Obi.
And that one she didn't have to read.
Yeah,
she was
she was thinking as a
business
business person, you'd have wanted to see that sort of...
she's walking up.
Right.
I think he's remembered for being a mother of 7. I mean, it's a great thing. It's a fantastic thing.
Moving on. An Abuja High Court has declared Professor Jerry Ghana the winner of the presidential primary elections of the Social Democratic Party conducted on October 6th. SDP had declared the former governor of Cross River, Donald Duke, the winner of the election and as flag bearer for the 2019 general elections, having polled 812 votes as against Professor Ghana's 611. However, Ghana had gone to court seeking to have the outcome reversed in his favor in line with the zoning and rotation formula of the party's constitution. In his judgment, Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf held that the regulations contained in the party's constitution were binding on every member and must be obeyed. In the meantime, 37 state party chairmen of the Social Democratic Party have rejected the court judgment and thrown their weight behind Donald Duke. The chairman described the ruling as an act of gross injustice, unconstitutional, null and void. The Forum of State Chairmen said it would use all available legal and judicial processes to protect its mandates and ensure the will of the people prevails. So your thoughts? What do you think that they can appeal successfully, and based on what? Can they turn to the Constitution and the provisions therein, or what would the legal argument be?
I think the good thing here is that they can appeal, and it speaks volume of conflict resolution for the political parties, and I think they're also watching this. It's a showdown, no doubt. 37 chairmen of the state chairman of the SDP. Those are your primary grassroots mobilizers, if I may use that word. You don't play with that. Now, I'm still yet to come to terms as how the judgment of the court regarding the Jerry Ghana's being granted that victory, as it were. So I think to a large extent, we're going to see a lot of uncertainties regarding this. There's going to be a lot of, and in terms of statistic, if I may add, I didn't see the judgment actually give us, roll out the figures in terms of how it came about with that.
Oh, no. The judge said, based on Article 15, subsection 3 of the Constitution.
It wasn't
Article 15, subsection 3 talks about a quorum, because I looked it up. No. It doesn't talk about this.
You see, the judge's position these days, the party has an internal agreement to say that...
Agreement or part of their constitution?
Part of the constitution. That it will go for... I think it was an agreement, though, to say that they were going to zone the presidency to a zone. They said that the flag bearer and the chairman of the party cannot come from the same zone.
Yeah.
So because Chief Olufala is from the south,
Southwest.
they use south and north.
Yeah, it's that same rotational thing, yeah.
So because the chairman is from the south, the president has to come from the north. Is
But
what
I'm
this is.
confused that the judgment cites the party's constitution.
And not the...
It's not in the constitution.
No, that's why you said it's an agreement. But there
So
is
it's
a
an
line.
agreement.
Yes.
Which then means
So
the
how
judgment
could
is
you-
flawed.
It is,
Yeah.
because
So
it's
let's
cites
be
the
careful.
So that then
constitution.
gives back to
It's
his
not-
answer.
yes,
gives
it's not in the
example of appeal.
constitution.
So
We need to
the-
look at it very well
Yeah.
because the judge in the few things I read was very clear. He used a line that I really like. He said, the agreement is clear. There's no line in between. Now, this is what they've said, so this cannot come forward.
But can
I am
you
not happy.
successfully argue that this agreement is seeking to curtail his rights as a Nigerian to contest for the office of
He
president
has argued that.
according to the Nigerian constitution?
Yes, he can and he has argued
And
that in the
especially if
past.
it's an agreement that's, in a sense, a gentleman's agreement or an agreement not
The
backed by,
party.
not backed by, nobody's sort of swore an oath to whatever it says. No, I'm just saying that I guess my starting point when I was the understanding of the Constitution.
Yeah.
But now that it's the same issue we had with PDP. And I think it was when Jonathan was trying to run a second time.
Yes.
So that, there's an understanding within the party that it was just. So the dude was like, well, it's not legal. I didn't sign anything. So.
But I think it goes beyond that. On a personal note, I'm very sorry because I wanted Donald Duke to be the presidential candidate. But we saw this coming, and some people mooted it. I think what they've done for Donald Duke is sort of they've shown him who's a bigger boy here. They've used the rules and regulation to show him who's really in charge. You're a good-looking boy who wants to play. This goes beyond that.
In spite of winning the popular vote?
That's even my fear.
The state chairman thing
Exactly.
you were talking about, there's no surprise about it. He won the vote by close to 200 votes.
Yes.
The people who gave him the vote were his chairman. So those are his supporters. So it's a natural progression that they're going to support him. It means nothing. It's not a game changer thing. Those were the people
So
who gave
obviously,
him.
if this is not handled properly, my own concern here is that it could actually tear the fabric of the party itself into tatters.
Because Professor Jerry Ghana does not have popular support.
Yes, and that's...
Guys,
that's
don't
quite-
say that. He didn't lose by 1,000 to 200. He lost just by
And the
lost by
state chairmen are
margin.
not accepting this judgment. They're publicly behind
So there's a lot of
Donald Duke.
uncertainty in the next few weeks ahead.
Yeah, there is.
I think for me, a more important thing is that the role of mediation.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure Donald Duke didn't just wake up. There was a lawsuit, so you knew people were in court. And if it's an issue of this zone, even though you didn't agree with it, for me, the part of saving us all this drama would have been technically. I mean, Chief Olufala, he was 80 a few months ago. But like, Baba, would you mind being elder? No, but it's true. Would you really mind? And so if he cannot, even him as Donald Duke, and this is where in this whole thing I hold him responsible, if he was not able to convince Chief Olufala, for the sake of the mandate, let's not argue, he got the mandate. For the mandate that he has received, so there's this loose agreement that's not documented or documented, whatever the case may be, it's not legal. It's not legally binding. So you know that. You got a popular mandate. Then go to the man and say, dude.
But I wondered about that. What if that cannot be applied retrospectively?
And then-
What if that should have been done before they actually went to the primaries?
Well,
I consider that.
It's possible. It would have been a different argument. Like, maybe he'll have more empathy. But they'll be like, but the man has stepped down for him. Can we please?
Politics of goodwill.
Indeed, true. No, but the negotiating part is not. But you're right. If then Jerry Ghana's point, I think in that bit, and another sort of mediating point, if Jerry Ghana now wants to go to court and say it should have happened after, I would hope that people can also appeal to him and be like, Abba, we have stopped the same zone.
I'm going to make an appeal to the chairman of the SDP.
The state parties.
The state parties.
Let's face it, Jerry Ghana has been around for a long time, so I guess he knows his onions.
And call him like a sister and say, look, Baba, Uncle, sit down. Allow this thing to flow.
No, but even to his point, honestly, especially in the context, and you should support this since you're looking for a third force candidate. In the
Are you
context
still?
of
Have you given up that dream?
Guys, can we follow this?
in the context of the Nigeria today, there is a stronger case that SDP can make for Duke candidacy. And because you're right, Jerry Ghana has been around for a while, so it's the same narrative. Prof, you're in the same age bracket as Atiku and Buhari, so
very different from that.
exactly.
We're just going to take a short break now. We'll be right back.